Deputy Speaker. Now, as an active user of the NHS myself, I do welcome steps that can be taken to improve patient experience and care. But the NHS is a delicate ecosystem. Mistakes and errors don't just lead to a loss of money, but it can be life-changing, and it is a matter, quite literally, of life and death. So it is absolutely essential that we get these changes right. Conscious of time, I'll just focus on a few points that I want to raise. So it has been mentioned quite a number of times about the single patient records. Now, representing a constituency, South Northamptonshire, where there is not one hospital within the actual boundaries, my constituents can be treated at a variety of hospitals, whether that's Northampton, Milton Keynes, Kettering, John Radcliffe, or the Horton. So working across county and across the country, I can see the value in creating a single patient record, so notes are available, and it really could transform care coordination. I had an example of one of my constituents whose wife was almost given medication that would have killed her because she would have had an allergic reaction because of old notes, but for his presence being there that saved her life. We can't do this again in this day and age. But as the Royal College of Nursing have sort of indicated, any new system really must make sure it has robust safeguards around the data privacy, transparency, access, procurement and secondary uses of data. Now, I acknowledge that the Secretary of State has put an emphasis on looking at that, but I think we all need more assurances. And even the Royal College of GPs is asking whether the government would provide any assurances around indemnities for GPs to protect against liability if there are breaches of data protection regulations or instances of mishandling of patient records if that was to occur. All in all, to have a single patient record, it will only work if it has the confidence of the patients and the staff. And I think nursing staff have been asking through the Royal College of Nursing if they will be involved in the actual creation and design of this single patient record to make sure that it will actually work properly in practice. So perhaps the Minister could confirm on this. Now, secondly, without careful safeguards, structural changes could have huge risks, or at least undermine some of the most significant of advances that we've seen in recent years. Now, many members will not fail to know that I am a type 1 diabetic, and I will always passionately talk about diabetes. But Diabetes UK themselves have highlighted just some concerns about some of these changes. Now, we have seen some incredible movements in diabetic technology. For example, the development of the continuous glucose monitoring and recently the hybrid closed-loop systems, which I'm standing here today actually wearing and using. Now, it has been central coordination that has ensured that funding agreements are secured and access is prioritised. If you were to shift that purely to local decision-making, it risks fragmentation and widening inequalities. Also, there are many different new treatments that are being progressed and created. For example, I had a 10-minute rule bill, which is about trying to do a screening programme for type 1 diabetes in children. And we need to make sure that this, along with access to emerging immunotherapies, are also prioritised. Now, because this is incredibly specialised, it does require expert national oversight and coordination, and it would be inefficient and potentially ineffective if these developments were to be pursued purely on a local basis, and therefore we want to make sure that we are not going to see any progress falling between the cracks in these changes that are going forward. And finally, just to touch on the patient voices, it has been mentioned numerous times about the abolition of Health Watch England, and I know so many patients have to be incredibly vocal about the care that they absolutely need, and often they are not as strong as us at making those points. So it is absolutely vital that we still maintain bodies who can speak on their behalf, and especially that makes sure that young children's voices and that of the youth is actually prioritised. So I am supportive of some of the changes that are coming, but I do think we need to exercise some care and some caution.